Josue, we're going to review this assessment to see where we currently stand in our body. And we're going to start with the pre-movement. So just us in a stance, and we're going to verify our general alignment. And what we're going to look at first is our feet. Are our feet straight? And by looking at your big toe, we can see that we have this outward point. So we're pointing outwards. And if we look at our knees, we can see that we're following basically that same direction. Basically, this is creating this pyramid stance. So we don't have this parallel stance, which can generally allude to us having limited access into our backside. So we're mostly pressurizing into our front side, which in a stance, we're doing this quite often. Now we're going to look to see how our vertical alignment is, and we're going to take a look at how our ankles, our hips, and our shoulders align. And I'm just going to draw some circles around our ankles, around our hips, around our shoulders, and we're going to take a look to see how they vertically align by drawing a 90-degree line through each one. And I think I could shift this one over just a bit, and we'll draw one on our right side. And we're going to see we're generally aligned. We have this vertical alignment between our ankles, our hips, and our shoulders. And now we're going to trace this over to a side profile. And we're going to see how our ears, hips, and shoulders are vertically aligned. Let's go back a bit. We're going to look at our ankles. We're going to draw something relatively where our hip is going to be. And a bit at our shoulders. And we're going to draw that same 90-degree vertical line to see we have this alignment. And we can see if we were to we have 90 right there. And if I take these next lines, well, take our blue line and we'll try to connect the dots, and we'll see them in comparison to a 90-degree. And so we can see that our shoulders, they're not vertically aligned. What we would term a banana body, which has this shape that's pushing us forward, as opposed to having some pressure in our backside. This tells us that we're pretty comfortable solely in our front chain, which typically is an overuse compensation. Also wanted to rewind just a bit and go to your front and look at your horizontal alignments. And we can see, we're going to look at are our hips aligned? Are our shoulders aligned? And if we look firstly at your shoulders, we can see that we have this slight drop into our right side, that we're pulling towards our right. You can see that with your hands. Your hands are a bit lower on your right side than on your left side. Your hips, they seem to be aligned, but your shoulders have this pull to the right side. We're gonna fast forward this now, and we're gonna go into a bit of our movement, our mobility, and we're gonna start with two basic movements, which are our squat and our hinge movements, which we went through. So we'll fast forward a bit, and we're gonna clear these lines, and we're gonna look out to see if our feet are straight, and we can see that our feet are not straight, and we begin to widen our stance, knowing that we're gonna go into a squat. We feel more comfortable being wider and our feet outwards, which is following a bit of that same pattern when we were just in our stance assessment. And so we can see our feet, they're pointing outwards, and we're compensating by going into a wider stance, which this is a common compensation of avoiding loading into our backside, our posterior chain. And now we're gonna see how we mobilize into this squat. And I had you not fully squat in your front, and then you stopped, and then you started. So we'll see how you end. What I want to look at here is how is the arch of our foot maintained? And if we go into, zoom in a bit, we can see that the arches of our feet, they seem to be maintained. At this point, we're at about the halfway point of our squat, and we can see that we're keeping this nice fluidity in our ankles. Our ankles are not collapsing inwards. But I didn't have you go down all the way on your front, or we didn't go down all the way on your front. So we're gonna take a look at a back view, which will give us another perspective of our ankles. Here we are in our back. Again, our feet are ducking outwards, and we're gonna just take a look at the arches of our feet. We can tell right here that we duck our feet outwards a bit more. And so we're getting stuck at some point in our quarter squat. But we seem to be maintaining these arches. We're maintaining it. And then right here, we start seeing that we're collapsing inwards. We can do that by seeing if we could draw a line, see where our ankle is, and we could see that it's moving and collapsing a bit inwards. Same with your right side. And we're also going to check to see how the direction of our knees are facing. And you have this outward facing of your knees, of your hips. But as we get deeper into our squat, about right here, we could see our right knee is dumping. Our left knee begins to dump a bit too, our right more so. And we can see the collapse of that ankle. So we can see the ankles are collapsing inwards as we get into a lower squat, and our right knee begins to also collapse. Now we're going to go into a side profile view. We're going to clear these lines again, and what we're going to want to see is in what general direction are we in our body. Are we accessing our backside, or are we having limited access and dropping into the front side? Are we in the posterior, or are we in the front? And the side view will let us see this, because we're going to see the relationship of our knees with our shoulders, our knees, with our glutes, with our hips, and we're gonna see which is dominantly moving. And so we will move forward. And we see now that you're going into your squat. We can see that your hips are driving back, your hips are driving back, your hips are driving back. And we're getting into about our quarter squat. Again, our hips are driving back. We're using our arms for a bit of leverage and balance. Sorry, let's go to this way right here. Again, let's take a look at a relationship of our hips, and our hips are driving back. We're trying to see the relationship of our hips and our shoulders. Are they in unison, meaning our shoulders are moving forward and our hips are moving back. And as we get into about a quarter squat, right about this point, we can start seeing that our knees are starting to become a bit more dominant in the drive force. So our knees are driving forward. And we can do this by drawing this straight line to our knees. And we can see that at this point, our hips are driving back, and then our knees are starting to dominate the movement a bit, and our hips are losing, being pulled back. And so our knees are driving forward. Basically, this is also telling us that we're comfortable driving into our front chain. We've pulled and relaxed our back chain because we just don't have access into that area. We can see right here too, your feet are starting to point and go a bit more external, so you can try to get into that deeper squat. And now we're just knee dominant. You do have access into your squat, so there's just some things that we just need to clean up. So are our feet straight? No. Was the arch of the foot maintained? For a lot of the movement, the arch of the foot was maintained, but as we get into lower squat, we start collapsing inwards. Our right knee was collapsing inwards, and we start seeing, that collapse of our knees, and we're not loading back. And now we are going to go to our hinge. Let me clear that line. Again, we're gonna look at our feet straight. And right now we can see that they're not straight. But as I move a bit forward, we narrow our stance quite a bit. Our left foot is straight, our right foot is a bit ducked outwards. And let's see how we hinge. Our knees let's take a look. We have some more access that we can find in our hinge, but relatively pretty good depth in your hinge. Let's take a look at a side view. We can see that we're drawing our hips back, and then we want to see at what point do we keep driving our hips back, or do we fall into the flexion of the spine? We can see here that we are driving our hips back, and then at about a quarter of our hinge, we lose the pressure in our backside, and we begin to flex into our spine. And I can see here there's a bit of uncomfortableness. That left foot is moving a bit, trying to find its balance. And so at about a quarter hinge, we stop hinging, and we can see, again, that our left foot moves maybe for a possible compensation. Let's take a look from the back. We have our feet are a bit narrower. They are pointing outwards. And right here is where I can see that we are not releasing inwards with our knees. Zoom in a bit right here. I think when we get to about that quarter squat where we lose our hips pulling back, we can see that our knees are starting to rotate. They're starting to rotate a bit out, and I can see right there. You can see that bit of our calves are moving externally, and I think our knees are starting to point a bit outwards. It's not that bad. We can see from the front view. But we don't have this internal rotation. What we're trying to do is go internal from our hips, so that way we could bring our hips back. So are our feet straight? They were narrower. We can see that they have this outward direction pull. Is the arch of the foot maintained? Let's take a look at that. The arches seem to be maintained. I'd like to see it from the back view. See here, we have a bit of a collapse, but not much. You see that our arches seem to be fairly maintained. It can be also that we're holding this wider stance. But I can see that our knees, we just don't have that inward rotation from our hips. So feet straight, no. Is the arch of the foot maintained? Yes. Are the palms on the ground? You're getting really close, so you have quite a bit of access. We can work on cleaning that up a bit and getting some more access. Are the legs straight? I can see that they're kind of a bit straight. They kind of towards the end pull outwards a bit, and there is no releasing inwards.